An emergency in the Highlands. The Highlands of Papua New Guinea, or PNG as people call it, contain some of the most difficult wild countryside in the world. A new highway now runs along the center of the highlands, but still only a few villages have a road link with the outside world. For many people, the only means of transport is the aeroplane. In fact, many villagers saw a wheel for the first time, not on a cart, not on a bus, not on a lorry, not on a car, but on an aeroplane. Single engine Cessna planes can get into remote valleys which are still cut off from cars and jeeps. As a doctor based at the hospital in Mount Hagen, I spent a lot of my time in those little planes. Sitting in the front next to the pilot, I saw the skill and the courage of the men who flew them. In and out of valleys we flew, banking around the sides of formidable hills. What a luxury it seemed to land on the smooth tarmac runway of Mount Hagen. Most of the runways were rough, sloping fields cut out of the hillside or patches of open ground on a valley floor. We kept an anxious watch on the cloud formations. The weather was a matter of life and death for us. Many a brave man had died after losing his way in the thick clouds and crashing into a mountainside. My work often took me out of the hospital in Mount Hagen. I visited some of the health clinics and first aid posts in the surrounding hills, advising the health workers and performing minor operations. Patients who were seriously ill were sometimes flown back to Mount Hagen. One of my trips took me to the town of Telefomin. It is in the far west of the highlands near the border with Irian Java. I call it a town, but by Indian standards, it is not more than a village, a cluster of houses around the runway with a school and a health clinic. Telefomin has no road link with the rest of the highlands. The runway is its only lifeline. I had spent 2 days at the clinic in Telefomin and I was due to leave the next day. That night it rained heavily. The next morning the valley was covered in thick cloud and it was still raining. At 10 o'clock we heard a plane overhead. It circled for some time, then the sound died away. The pilot could not see the runway, and to come down into the valley through the clouds would invite disaster. He had returned to Mount Hagen. The next day, The weather was still bad, and I resigned myself to another delay. That afternoon, the radio telephone rang in the health clinic. The nurse picked up the receiver. I heard an anxious voice. Tifalmin calling telephomin over. Tifalmin calling telephomin over. Receiving you loud and clear, Tifalmin, the nurse responded. This is Telephomin Health Clinic here. What is your message? Over. Am I glad to hear you, said the man's voice. I have been trying to contact you for hours. This is Lahvi in the Tilfarmin First Aid Center. I have a patient, a young boy. He has severe stomach pains. I think it may be appendicitis. Lahvi described the symptoms. The boy had pain in the lower right side of his abdomen. When the health worker pressed it gently, the pain was severe. It sounded like acute appendicitis. I gave orders for complete rest and a liquid diet. But the boy needed an operation urgently. Without it, he might die within 24 hours. There was a runway at Tifalmin, and I promised to divert the first plane there. The question was, would the first plane come in time? The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the cloud cover was still heavy. The morning passed. There was no sign of a plane. Lahvi contacted us by radio again. The boy's condition was worse. He would not live through another night. We must fly him out. The situation was critical. At 1 o'clock, I put through an urgent radio call to Mount Hagen. The clouds were lifting now, and a plane might be able to land. They would send a plane straight away, they said. We waited. It took an hour and a half to fly from Mount Hagen. The minutes ticked by. I stood by the side of the runway, listening, watching, waiting. The clouds gathered again. The gaps of blue sky narrowed. At 3 o'clock, I heard the plane, but the clouds had once again covered the valley. The plane circled once, twice, then a breeze swept the valley. The clouds parted, and a single engine Cessna 402 dropped out of the sky and splashed up the muddy runway. I dashed through the mud and clambered in, clutching my medical bag. The pilot was a weather-beaten Australian. I had flown with him many times. Thanks for coming, Mike. No mention, Doc. I was just going to head straight for Tifalmin. Then I saw that gap in the clouds. I'm not much good at doing appendix operations, especially if I am flying a plane at the same time. So I thought I would better pick you up too. Let us be off while we can still see where we are going. We raced down the hill, pumping and splashing. Then we were in the air, climbing steeply and heading for the tiny patch of blue. Tifalmin lay west of Telefomin. It was about half an hour's flight. We climbed over a mountain ridge, then crept down narrow valleys. The cloud was thick on the hilltops around us. It was like flying down a tunnel. Suddenly, a blanket of dense cloud blocked our path. The valley was only 100 yards wide. We could not risk flying through the cloud. Mike pulled the plane up. We sliced through the thick whiteness, unable to see beyond the propeller. At any moment, I thought we shall crash into a mountainside. Then we were above it all, and the sunshine dazzled us. Tifalman is just down there, said Mike, but we can't get down through that lot. Let us just hope a bit of wind gets up to blow it away. For half an hour we circled. For an hour I willed the clouds to part. My fingernails dug into palms of my hand. I could sense the boy's life ebbing away. We contacted Lahvi on the radio. I can hear your plane, he said, but I can't see you. Please don't go away. We will keep circling as long as we can, Mike replied. It was 5 o'clock now. Time was slipping away. We could not wait much longer. Then a miracle happened. A gap opened beneath us, and we saw the tiny runway of Tifalmin nuzzling in the valley. We spiraled down and finally swept low across a river swollen with rain. The runway was no bigger than a football field. The hills crowded in closely around it. I wondered if we would be able to stop in such a small space. But the mud was so thick that Mike had to accelerate to reach the end of the runway. Lahvi showed us into the first aid post. The young boy lay on a cot, his knees drawn up to his chest, his eyes closed. I straightened his legs and softly touched the left side of his abdomen. No reaction. I touched the right side. A dreadful expression of pain creased his face. The appendix might burst at any moment, and then there would be little hope of saving him. He was just 13 or 14 years old. We carried him to the plane on a stretcher and lowered him gently into the back. His parents climbed in beside him. They had not slept for 2 nights, and their faces were drawn and weary. The whole village had gathered near the plane to watch us leave. Mike drew me to one side. We have a slight problem, Doc. What is that? Fuel. We are running short. All that circling above Tifalmin used up a lot, and the wind will be against us on the way back. I am not sure there is enough to get us to Mount Hagen. There may be enough, but it is a big risk. Can we refuel at Telefomin? There is fuel in Telefomin, I said reluctantly. The last thing I wanted was extra delay. Every minute was vital. I wanted to get the boy to Mount Hagen as soon as possible. That is not all, Mike went on. It will take at least 20 minutes to refuel. It is almost half past 5 now. Work it out for yourself. We can get to Telefomin in daylight and we can take off again in daylight. Just. But we would have to fly most of the way to Mount Hagen in the dark. In these hills, in this weather, in a plane without radar, that is asking for trouble, to put it mildly. There was a long silence. What are you saying? I asked. Can you operate in Telefomin? The thought turned me cold. The clinic was clean and well run, but it was not a place for an emergency appendix operation. Could the fuel last until Mount Hagen? I asked in return. We stared at each other. Laughing, I called at last. Send a radio message to Telefomin. Tell them to get ready for a possible emergency appendix operation. As we charged down the runway, mud splattered high around us. It clawed at the wheels, holding us back. I thought we would never get enough speed to take off. At the last moment, Mike lifted us off the ground. The sheer mountainside rushed at us. We veered sharply to the right. The wing tip grazed the river. The belly of the plane was only a few feet away from the mountainside. I wiped the sweat from my forehead. A faint smile played around Mike's lips. Behind us, the young boy groaned. Up through the cloud tunnel we climbed. Over the mountain ridge, after half an hour, Mike throttled down the engine. Are we there? I asked. Yeah. I can't see the runway. Mike smiled grimly. Neither can I. I looked out of the window. A thick bank of cloud lay between us and the ground. Somewhere down there was Telefomin, but where? We circled twice. Mike was the first to break the silence. We can head for Hagen and hope the fuel lasts, he said. Or we can keep circling here and hope for a break in the cloud. What do you think? You are a pilot, I said. You decide. Mike looked down at the cloud again. That looks solid to me. I don't think it will break up this evening. I don't fancy going down through it to land. And if we wait till dark, the plane swung away to east. I say Hagen, and keep your fingers crossed. We flew in silence for an hour. Behind us, the glow from the setting sun faded. Ahead, a curtain of night began to stretch across the sky. The needle on the fuel gauge slipped down to E, that is empty. Another 15 minutes would do it now. How accurate was the fuel gauge? The young boy groaned. His mother whispered softly. And how many minutes before his appendix burst? Mike contacted Mount Hagen Airport by radio. We are approaching Mount Hagen. We are flying due east. We have only 5 minutes fuel left. We cannot see the runway. It was dark now. We flew by the lights of the stars. Mercifully, the sky was clear here. We peered into the distance. Was that a light? Maybe it was just imagination. It was a light. Yes, a light. Now, lots of lights. Hagen. It must be Mount Hagen. The lights of Hagen shimmered ahead of us in the broad, dark valley. It was just 5 minutes away now. But how much fuel was left? Nearer, nearer, every yard counted. Ahead the lights beckoned us to safety. All around us the darkness embraced us. Come to me, it seemed to whisper. Come to me forever. Suddenly, we held our breath. The engine stuttered, faltered, picked up again. Come on. Mike whispered urgently. Don't give up on us now. He eased the nose of the plane up and we began to climb. I glanced across at him. There was no smile on his face now. We may need the extra height, he said simply. Even as he spoke, the engine faltered again and died. The propeller veered round slower and slower and then stopped. We are still in with a chance, said Mike. These things glide pretty well, but it is a long way. We flicked a switch on the radio. Mayday, Mayday. We have run out of fuel. We are about 3 miles west of the runway, trying to glide in. Watch for us. Over and out. The lights of the runway were clearly visible. Now, two bright parallel lines in that night. The air rushed past us as we glided on. Closer and closer, lower and lower. We were losing height and losing speed, but we were almost there now. 200 yards, 100 yards. A huge shape loomed out of the darkness. Tree! Mike, look out! I screamed. A scratching, ripping sound shattered the silence of the night and sent shudders through the whole plane. But we were still airborne, still moving. Then we were down and we were safe. We had come to a halt on some rough ground a few yards short of the tarmac runway. Through my tears, I saw the blurred headlights of an ambulance racing towards us. Mike recovered quickly. He had already clambered out of the plane. Hey, Doc, came his cheerful voice. Just help me to pull these leaves off the wheels. The young boy lived. He was rushed to the hospital in Mount Hagen and the appendix was removed within a couple of hours. Another doctor performed the operation. I was too tired and too shaken to do it myself. I left Papua New Guinea soon afterwards at the end of my contract. I never flew with Mike again, but each year, on the anniversary of that flight, the postman delivers an envelope to my house with a PNG stamp on it. Inside the envelope is a homemade greeting card. On the front of the card is pasted a dried pressed leaf. Thanks for listening.